Hello, story lovers. Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from. And if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. The envelope landed on Victoria's desk like a judge's gavel. Silver embossing caught the morning light streaming through her Manhattan office windows, casting metallic shadows across the chaos of fabric swatches and seating charts. She didn't need to open it to know who sent it. Damien Cross didn't do subtlety. Her assistant hovered in the doorway, uncertainty flickering across her face. He said it was urgent. Victoria's fingers trembled as she tore the seal. The words blurred, then sharpened. Surrogacy agreement. Co-parenting contract. $5 million. The coffee mug slipped from her hand, ceramic exploding against hardwood. 20 minutes later, she stood in his penthouse office, chest heaving, fury radiating from every pore. Floor 2 ceiling windows framed Central Park like a photograph, but all she could see was the man behind the desk. Damien Cross, tech industry legend, perfectionist tyrant, and apparently completely insane. "You want me to have your baby?" Her voice cut through the pristine space like broken glass. Damien turned from the window, his steel-gray eyes assessing her with mechanical precision. At 34, he looked carved from marble, all sharp angles and controlled power. His suit probably cost more than most people's cars. "I want you to carry my child, yes. The distinction is important. The distinction is psychotic. My grandmother is dying." His voice didn't change, but something flickered behind those calculating eyes. "She has 3 months. She built Cross Industries from nothing after my grandfather died. Her final wish is to know the legacy continues through blood, not just corporate succession." Victoria's anger stuttered, caught on the edge of something that sounded almost human. "So date someone. Fall in love. Do it the normal way. Love is inefficient and unpredictable." He said it like a mathematical proof. "I've observed you for 2 years, Victoria. You're intelligent, organized, capable. You mentioned wanting children at the Morrison wedding. This arrangement benefits us both." He'd flooded her face. "You were eavesdropping?" "I was standing 3 feet away when you told Mrs. Morrison about your dating struggles." The elevator chimed. An elderly woman stepped into the office, silver hair perfectly styled, leaning on a cane but radiating authority that made Damien look like an amateur. Eleanor Cross's blue eyes missed nothing. "I thought I heard shouting." Her gaze moved between them. "You must be Victoria Sterling. Damien speaks highly of your work." Victoria recognized her from charity galas, though she looked frailer now, her elegant frame diminished by illness. "Mrs. Cross, your grandson just propositioned me to have his child like I'm ordering takeout." Eleanor's laugh was surprisingly warm. "Oh, I know. I suggested you—" She moved to a chair with careful dignity. "My grandson has the emotional range of a spreadsheet. Brilliant, but utterly disconnected from anything resembling human feeling. However, beneath all that calculated precision, there's tremendous potential." "Grandmother," Damien warned. "Hush, I'm dying." "I'll say what I please." Eleanor turned back to Victoria. "I'm not asking you to marry him. Heaven knows he's not ready for that. I'm simply asking you to consider giving an old woman peace before she goes." Victoria felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This is insane. "Dinner tomorrow? 7 o'clock. Damien stated it like closing a business deal. "We'll discuss terms. I haven't agreed to anything." The car will arrive at 6:45 as the elevator doors closed. Victoria leaned against the polished wall, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored surface. The contract burned in her bag like evidence of a crime she hadn't committed yet. But the tiny, treacherous voice in her head whispered dangerous possibilities. What if? The restaurant was the kind of place where reservations required 3 months. Notice and connections that money alone couldn't buy. Damien had predictably chosen wine she'd mentioned once at a previous event, demonstrating his unsettling ability to catalog every detail. Victoria set down her menu, meeting his gaze directly. "I'm not signing your contract. I anticipated that. He didn't look surprised. What would you propose instead? The question caught her off guard. She'd expected argument, negotiation, the full force of his legendary persistence. Not this calm acceptance. Why do you really want this? And don't give me the corporate legacy speech. Damien's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only crack in his perfect composure. My parents died when I was 8. Car accident. My grandmother raised me alone while building an empire. She was demanding, strict, entirely focused on preparing me to inherit everything she'd created. He paused, his fingers tracing the stem of his wineglass. She sacrificed her entire life for me. This is the one thing she's asked in return. The raw honesty in his voice struck something deep in Victoria's chest. For the first time, she saw past the intimidating exterior to the boy underneath. Shaped by loss and expectation, molded into a man who valued control because everything else had been stolen. What if we gave her what she wants without the baby? His eyes sharpened with interest. Explain. We fake it. Date. Fall in love. Get engaged. Give her the vision of you building a family, planning a future. She gets peace. You fulfill her wish. No actual child created as part of a business transaction. Damien considered this with his typical analytical precision. Victoria could almost see the calculations running behind those gray eyes. You'd be comfortable with prolonged deception? I'd call it a compassionate illusion. People lie to dying relatives all the time to give them comfort. What would you require in exchange? Victoria had spent the entire day thinking about this. Fund a community center in Brooklyn Heights. $2 million. The neighborhood where I grew up needs proper facilities for after-school programs, job training, senior activities. Done. Just like that. It's significantly less than I offered for surrogacy, and it aligns with Cross Industries' charitable initiatives. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his features. You're a better negotiator than most of my board members. Despite everything, Victoria laughed. If we're doing this, you'll need to learn to behave like someone who actually likes me. Damien extended his hand across the table, and Victoria noticed for the first time how elegant his hands were, long fingers and controlled strength. Do we have an agreement? Looking at his outstretched hand, Victoria had the distinct feeling she was making either the best or worst decision of her life. The space between them felt charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Deal. She shook his hand firmly. But if we're pretending to be romantically involved, call me Victoria. His fingers tightened slightly around hers, warm and solid. Victoria. Her name sounded different in his precise voice, intimate somehow. I believe this arrangement may prove more successful than either of us anticipates. Their hands remained connected longer than necessary, and Victoria felt her pulse quicken. 3 weeks later, she stood in Eleanor's elegant penthouse, receiving what could only be described as relationship coaching from one of Manhattan's most formidable socialites. No, absolutely not. Eleanor tapped her cane against the marble floor. Damien, she's supposed to be your beloved girlfriend, not your business associate. Damien's brow furrowed in genuine confusion, and Victoria bit her lip to suppress laughter. They were supposed to be practicing for an upcoming charity gala, but Eleanor had other ideas. Put your arm around her waist. Look at her like she matters. Damien's hand settled tentatively on Victoria's hip, his touch burning through the thin fabric of her dress. She looked up at him, and something shifted in his expression. The calculation faded, replaced by something raw and uncertain. Better, Eleanor murmured. But Damien, you need to actually feel something. Stop thinking and just feel. His thumb traced a small circle against Victoria's side, and heat flooded through her body. This was supposed to be fake, a performance. But the way he was looking at her now, like she was a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve, felt devastatingly real. Victoria. Oh. His voice was rough. I think I'm doing this wrong. No, she whispered, her hand rising to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat thundering beneath her palm. I think you're doing it exactly right, Eleanor cleared her throat. But when Victoria glanced over, the elderly woman was smiling, her eyes bright with something that looked like hope. That night, as Damien walked Victoria to her apartment, he stopped outside her door. Thank you. For agreeing to this, we both get what we need. Do we? His hand reached up, fingertips barely brushing her cheek. I'm not sure anymore what I need. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving Victoria standing in her doorway, heart racing, realizing with dawning horror that somewhere between the contract and the lie, she'd started falling for the man who thought love was just another business transaction. The charity gala was exactly the kind of event Victoria had coordinated hundreds of times, but tonight she wasn't working. She was Damien Cross's girlfriend, draped in a dress he'd had custom-made, emerald silk that caught the light like water. His hand rested possessively on her lower back as they navigated the crowd. Victoria tried to ignore how natural it felt, how right. You're staring, she murmured. I'm admiring. His lips curved slightly. There's a difference. When did you learn to flirt? I've been studying, she laughed, the sound genuine, and caught Eleanor watching them from across the room. The elderly woman looked frailer than last week, her skin paper-thin, but her smile was radiant. She's happy, Victoria said softly. Because of you. Damien's thumb traced circles against her spine, sending shivers through her body. I never thanked you properly for that. You're funding the community center. That's thanks enough, is it? Before she could answer, a man approached, blond and handsome with an edge of arrogance that set Victoria's teeth on edge. Marcus Reeves, Damien's former business partner, the man who'd tried to stage a hostile takeover of Cross Industries 2 years ago. Cross. Marcus's smile was sharp. And who's this? The famous event planner. I heard you were slumming, but I didn't believe it. Damien's entire body went rigid. Walk away, Reeves. Why so protective? Oh, don't tell me this is real. Marcus laughed, the sound ugly. Everyone knows you're incapable of actual human connection. What's the arrangement here? Is she another acquisition? A pretty accessory to make grandmother happy before she dies? Victoria felt Damien's hand clench against her back, rage radiating from him in waves. You have 5 seconds to leave before I have security remove you. Touched a nerve, did I? Marcus leaned closer to Victoria, his breath reeking of expensive scotch. Run while you can, sweetheart. He'll never love you. He doesn't know how. That's enough. Victoria's voice cut through the tension like a blade. You can insult him all you want, but you know nothing about what we have. Now leave before I have you remove myself. Marcus's eyes widened in surprise, then hardened. You're a fool if you think this ends well. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving them standing in the wreckage of the moment. Damien's jaw was clenched so tightly, Victoria worried he might crack a tooth. Come with me. He led her through a service door into a quiet hallway, away from the music and voices. The moment they were alone, his composure shattered. He's right. His voice was raw, stripped of its usual control. I don't know how to do this. Any of this. I thought I could fake it well enough to fool my grandmother, but I can't fake what I don't understand. Damien. You defended me. He turned to her, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. No one's ever done that before. Not like that. He was being cruel. You stopped him. Why? Because I care about you, she wanted to say. Because somewhere in the past 6 weeks, this stopped being pretend. Instead, she reached up, cupping his face in her hands. Because you're not the man he described. You're complicated and difficult and frustrating, but you're not incapable of feeling. I've seen you with Eleanor. I've seen the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. His hands came up to cover hers, his touch desperate. Victoria, I need to tell you something. The door burst open. A woman Victoria recognized as Damien's assistant stood there, face pale. Mr. Cross, you need to come now. It's Mrs. Cross. She collapsed. The hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and fear. Damien sat motionless in a chair, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Victoria had never seen him look so lost. She's going to be okay, Victoria said, though she had no way of knowing if that was true. The doctor said weeks, not months. His voice was hollow. I'm running out of time. Victoria's heart clenched. Damien, we need to talk about what happens after. After Eleanor, she forced herself to say it. When this arrangement ends. He looked up at her then, and the expression on his face made her chest ache. What if I don't want it to end? The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but the doctor appeared in the doorway. Mr. Cross, your grandmother is asking for you both. Eleanor looked tiny in the hospital bed, monitors beeping softly around her, but her eyes were sharp as ever. Stop hovering like I'm already dead. Sit. They sat, and Eleanor's gaze moved between them with knowing intensity. I need to tell you something, and I need you both to listen without interrupting. She paused, gathering strength. I know about your arrangement. I've known from the beginning. Victoria's blood turned to ice. Grandmother, Damien started, but Eleanor held up a hand. I said, don't interrupt. I'm not an idiot, Damien. I've been manipulating people since before you were born. I knew you'd never agree to actual dating, so I pushed you toward something transactional. Her smile was sad. But I also knew that Victoria was exactly the kind of woman who could reach past all your walls. I just needed to give you both a reason to spend time together. You set us up. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. I gave you an opportunity. What you did with it was entirely your choice. Eleanor's hand reached out, trembling, and Victoria took it. The question is, what happens now? Do you walk away from each other, or do you fight for something real? Damien stood abruptly, his face a mask of betrayal and confusion. I need air. He left, and Victoria felt something crucial crack inside her chest. Eleanor squeezed her hand. Go after him. Don't let him run from this. Victoria found him on the hospital roof, standing at the edge, staring out at the city lights. She played us. His voice was flat. She gave us a chance. It was all a lie. Was it? Victoria moved closer, her heart pounding. Because everything I feel right now is real. Terrifyingly real. He turned to face her, and the anguish in his expression nearly broke her. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be what you need, then learn. With me? She closed the distance between them, and when his arms came around her, pulling her close with desperate strength, Victoria knew they'd crossed a line they could never uncross. His lips found hers, and the kiss was nothing like she'd imagined. It was messy and desperate and perfect, tasting of fear and hope, and something that felt dangerously like love. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien pressed his forehead to hers. Victoria, I need you to know something. The contract. I never filed it. I couldn't. Why not? Because even then, some part of me knew this was never going to be fake. She pulled back slightly, studying his face. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm falling in love with you, and I have no idea what to do about it. Joy exploded in her chest, but before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went white. What is it? It's my lawyer. Eleanor changed her will 6 weeks ago. He looked up at her, confusion and hurt warring in his eyes. She left controlling interest in Cross Industries to both of us. Jointly, we can't sell or transfer shares without the other's approval. The implications crashed over Victoria like a wave. Eleanor hadn't just set them up. She'd bound them together permanently, their futures and fortunes inextricably linked. She trapped us. Damien's voice was hollow, or she trusted us. Victoria reached for him, but he stepped back. I need to think. He left her standing on the roof, and Victoria realized with dawning horror that Eleanor's final manipulation might have destroyed the one real thing either of them had ever found. 3 days passed without a word from Damien. Victoria threw herself into work, coordinating events with mechanical precision while her heart slowly fractured. Eleanor had been moved to hospice care, and Victoria visited daily, sitting beside the woman who'd orchestrated everything. He won't see me, Victoria said quietly, watching rain streak down the windows. Eleanor's breathing was labored now, each word an effort. He's afraid of losing control, of needing someone. He thinks you manipulated us. I did. Eleanor's smile was weak, but unapologetic. But I also saw something neither of you could see. You're perfect for each other precisely because you're both so damaged. That's not how love works, isn't it? Eleanor's hand found hers. Real love isn't finding someone perfect. It's finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours. That night, Victoria returned to her apartment to find Damien waiting in the hallway. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, his shirt wrinkled, shadows under his eyes. "We need to talk." Inside, he paced like a caged animal while Victoria stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself. "I've been going over the will with lawyers. There's no loophole. We're bound together unless we both agree to sell everything." "Is that what you want? To sell?" "I don't know what I want." He ran his hands through his hair, frustration radiating from every line of his body. "Everything I thought I understood has been turned upside down. My grandmother manipulated us. This thing between us started as a lie. How do I know what's real anymore? Because I'm telling you it's real." Victoria's voice cracked. "What I feel for you has nothing to do with Eleanor's schemes or company shares or any of it. I fell in love with you, Damien. The real you, beneath all the control and calculation. Love." He said the word, like it was foreign. "You love me?" "Yes." "Why?" The question was so genuinely confused that Victoria's heart broke a little more. "Because you're brilliant and infuriating, and when you smile, really smile, it's like watching the sun break through clouds. Because you memorize details about people you care about. Because you're trying so hard to be what your grandmother needed that you forgot to figure out what you need." He stared at her, something raw and desperate in his eyes. "What if I can't be what you need? What if I'm too damaged, too broken? Then we'll be broken together." He crossed the room in 3 strides, cupping her face in his hands. "I'm terrified of this. Of you. Of how much I need you. I know. I've never needed anyone before. I know that too." His kiss was gentle this time, achingly tender, and Victoria felt tears slip down her cheeks. When he pulled back, he wiped them away with his thumbs. "Stay with me tonight. Not because of any arrangement or obligation. Just stay, okay?" They fell asleep tangled together on her couch, and for the first time in days, Victoria felt like maybe they'd be all right. She woke to an empty apartment and a note. "Had to handle something at the office. Back soon." But noon came and went with no word. Then evening. Victoria's calls went to voicemail. Her texts remained unread. Finally, at midnight, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Victoria Sterling?" The voice was female, professional. "This is Jennifer Walsh, attorney for Cross Industries. I'm calling to inform you that Damien Cross has initiated proceedings to dissolve the joint ownership structure outlined in Eleanor Cross's will. He's offering you $10 million for your shares." The room tilted. "What?" "Mr. Cross wanted me to convey that he believes this arrangement is best for both parties moving forward. He's also requested that you have no further contact with Mrs. Cross during her remaining time." Victoria's hand shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. "Put him on. I'm afraid Mr. Cross is unavailable. Tell him if he doesn't call me in the next 5 minutes. I'm coming to his office and making a scene that will be front-page news." 4 minutes later, her phone rang. "Victoria? What the hell are you doing?" Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken things. "I'm protecting you." His voice was flat, emotionless, the man she'd met 2 months ago. "From me? From this situation? From Eleanor's manipulation? That's not your choice to make. I'm offering you $10 million and your freedom. Take it. I don't want your money. I want you to tell me what's really happening." Another pause, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with suppressed emotion. "She died. 2 hours ago. I was holding her hand and she'd just stopped breathing." Victoria's heart shattered. "Damien, I'm so sorry. Let me come to you." "No." The word was sharp. "Don't you understand? This was all for her. The arrangement, the pretending, everything. Without her, there's no reason for any of this, except us. What we feel for each other. What I feel is obligation and guilt dressed up as something else. I convinced myself I loved you because that's what she wanted to see." Each word was a knife twisting in Victoria's chest. "You're lying. I'm being honest for the first time since this started. Sign the papers, Victoria. Take the money. Move on with your life. And if I refuse, then I'll make sure you regret it. I built an empire by destroying opposition. Don't make me treat you like the enemy." The threat hung between them, cold and final. You're a coward, Victoria whispered. Eleanor was right. You don't know how to feel anything real, so the moment it gets difficult, you run. Goodbye, Victoria. Line went dead. Victoria stood in her apartment, phone still pressed to her ear, and felt something inside her harden. Grief transformed into fury, and fury into determination. She called her lawyer. I need you to look into Eleanor Cross's will. Every clause, every condition, every possible interpretation. I want to know if there's any way to force joint ownership, Victoria. If Damien Cross wants you out, he has the resources to make it happen. Then I'll need resources too. Her mind raced, calculating. Contact every board member of Cross Industries. I want a meeting. And get me everything you can find on Marcus Reeves. The Marcus Reeves who tried to take over Cross Industries? The same one. What are you planning? Victoria stared at her reflection in the dark window, barely recognizing the woman looking back. War. 2 days later, she walked into a coffee shop in Brooklyn, sliding into a booth across from Marcus Reeves. He looked surprised, then intrigued. Victoria Sterling. To what do I owe this pleasure? She laid a folder on the table between them. I have Eleanor Cross's private files. Every business secret, every vulnerability, every skeleton in the closet. And I'm prepared to give them to you. Marcus's eyes gleamed. In exchange for what? Help me destroy Damien Cross. She said it calmly, clearly, and watched Marcus's smile spread like poison. Now this is interesting. Tell me more. As Victoria began outlining her plan, a small, horrified part of her whispered that she was making a terrible mistake. But the larger, angrier part that Damien had wounded beyond repair drowned it out. If he wanted war, she'd give him war. And when the dust settled, he'd realize exactly what he'd thrown away. The boardroom of Cross Industries had never felt more like a battlefield. Victoria sat at the far end of the conference table, Marcus Reeves beside her, flanked by 3 board members she'd carefully cultivated over the past 2 weeks. Across from them, Damien stood alone, his face carved from stone. This is a coup. His voice was ice. This is business. Victoria met his gaze without flinching. You taught me that everything is a transaction. So here's mine. Sign over 60% controlling interest to me, or I give Marcus everything in these files. She slid a USB drive across the polished wood. Eleanor's private documents, every questionable deal, every Graria negotiation, every secret that built this empire. Damien's jaw clenched. Would destroy everything she created. You destroyed us. Victoria's voice cracked, despite her attempt at control. So yes, I'll destroy this, if that's what it takes. Marcus leaned back, enjoying the show. It's a generous offer, Cross. Walk away with 40% and your reputation intact. Fight us, and we'll bury you in litigation and scandal until there's nothing left. For a long moment, Damien said nothing. Then he laughed, the sound bitter and empty. I underestimated you. You underestimated what I'd do when you broke my heart. Something flickered across his face. There and gone so quickly, she might have imagined it. Fine, you win. He pulled out his phone. I'll have my lawyers draw up the papers. Victoria should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. The meeting dissolved, board members filing out, but Damien remained. Marcus stood, squeezing Victoria's shoulder. I'll give you to a moment, but remember, you're with me now. When they were alone, Damien moved to the windows, staring out at the city his grandmother had conquered. Was any of it real? His voice was so quiet she almost didn't hear. Or was this your plan all along? It was real. Victoria's hands trembled in her lap. Every moment of it was real until you threw it away. I was trying to protect you. From what? From me, he turned, and the devastation in his eyes stole her breath. From the man who ruins everything he touches. My parents died because of me. That was an accident. They were driving to my school play. If I hadn't begged them to come, if they'd waited an hour, if I'd been less selfish. His voice broke. Eleanor spent her whole life cleaning up my messes, sacrificing everything to make sure I didn't destroy the company too. And then I met you, and for the first time, I wanted something just for me. Not for the company, not for legacy. Just you, Victoria stood, her legs unsteady. Then why'd you push me away? Because Eleanor's last words to me were a warning. He met her eyes, and she saw tears there. She said loving someone means being willing to let them go if staying would destroy them. She said I had a choice. Keep you and watch my damage corrupt everything good about you, or set you free before I ruined you too. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Is it? Look at what I've turned you into. 2 weeks ago, you were working with Marcus Reeves to destroy me? The woman I fell in love with would never do that. The accusation hit like a physical blow because it was true. Victoria looked at the USB drive on the table at Marcus's folder of secrets and felt sick. You're right. She picked up the drive, turning it over in her hands. I became someone I don't recognize. Someone cruel enough to use a dead woman's secrets as weapons. Victoria, but you did that to me. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. You made me love you, and then you threw me away like I meant nothing. So yes, I wanted to hurt you the way you hurt me. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of what I felt. Damien crossed the room, stopping just inches away.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I know. His hand reached up, hovering near her face but not quite touching. I know I destroyed us. But Victoria, you have to know, pushing you away was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than losing my parents. Harder than watching Eleanor die. Because you were right. I am a coward. Victoria's phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Papers are ready. Just need your signature and Cross Industries is ours. She stared at the message, then at Damien's broken expression, then at the USB drive in her hand. What was on Eleanor's bucket list? The question came out of nowhere. Damien blinked, confused by the change in subject. What? Besides seeing you build a family? What else did she want before she died? I don't understand what that has to do with anything. Just answer. He ran a hand through his hair, thinking, wanted the company to establish a foundation for underprivileged children. She'd been planning it for years, but never got around to implementing it. Victoria made a decision that would either save them or damn them both. She smashed the USB drive against the edge of the table, watching it shatter into pieces. What are you doing? Damien's eyes widened. Choosing us over revenge. Victoria pulled out her phone, typing rapidly. Marcus, the deal's off. I'm not signing anything. His reply was immediate and furious. You're making a mistake. Those files were your only leverage. I know, she looked at Damien. But some things are more important than winning. Victoria, you just gave up everything. No, I gave up Eleanor's secrets. They weren't mine to use. She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to honor Eleanor's real legacy. We'll establish that foundation properly this time. We'll use joint ownership the way she intended. Building something bigger than either of us alone. And us. That's harder. Victoria's voice shook. You hurt me, Damien, deeply, and I hurt you by going to Marcus. We're both damaged, both broken in our own ways. But maybe Eleanor was right. Maybe our broken pieces do fit together. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But I don't deserve you either. We're both disasters pretending to be functional. She squeezed his hand. The question is, are you brave enough to try again? For real this time. No arrangements, no contracts. Just two people figuring it out as they go. Damien pulled her against him, his arms wrapping around her with desperate strength. I'm terrified. Good. Me too. His lips found hers, and the kiss tasted like salt and second chances. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. I love you. I should have said it weeks ago, but I was too afraid. I love you, Victoria Sterling, with everything broken inside me. I love you too. She laughed through her tears. Even though you're impossible and infuriating and emotionally constipated, that's fair. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus, you'll regret this. Both of you. Victoria showed Damien the message, and something dark crossed his features. He won't let this go easily. Let him try. We'll face it together. Together. Damien tested the word like it was new. I like the sound of that. They stood in the empty boardroom as afternoon light painted everything gold. Two damaged people choosing love over fear. Connection over control. 6 months later, Victoria stood in the completed Brooklyn Heights community center, watching children stream through doors that bore Eleanor Cross's name. Damien's arm was around her waist, and she leaned into his warmth. She would have loved this, Victoria said softly. She would have taken credit for it, but his smile was genuine, the grief softened by time and healing. Marcus had tried to fight them, leaking damaging stories to the press, attempting hostile takeover maneuvers, but Damien and Victoria had stood firm. Together, they were stronger than either had been alone. Victoria turned to face him, nervous energy thrumming through her. "You're leaving me for someone more emotionally available?" His attempt at humor didn't quite hide the flash of real fear in his eyes. "I'm pregnant." The world seemed to stop. Damien's face went through a dozen expressions in as many seconds. Shock, fear, wonder, joy. "How long have you known?" 3 days. "I wanted to wait until today, until we were here, where everything started coming together." Her hands twisted nervously. "I know we never talked about actually having children. The original contract was fake, and we've been so focused on rebuilding trust that I never brought it up. But this happened, and I'm keeping it regardless of what you decide. Though I really hope you decide to stay because I can't imagine doing this without you." And he kissed her, silencing her rambling, his hands cradling her face with infinite gentleness. "I'm staying. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "We're doing this together. All of it. The messy, terrifying, beautiful, all of it. Even though we're disasters. Especially because we're disasters." His hand moved to rest on her still flat stomach. "This baby is going to have 2 very imperfect parents who love each other, despite every logical reason not to. Eleanor would say that's exactly how it should be. Eleanor orchestrated this entire thing from beyond the grave." Damien laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Somehow I think she knew it would end up here." Victoria thought about the contract that had started everything. The fake relationship that became devastatingly real, the betrayal and forgiveness and choice to love despite the damage. "Do you think she'd approve?" "I think she'd take full credit and demand we name the baby after her. If it's a girl, maybe we should." Damien pulled her close, his lips brushing her temple on her sterling cross. It has a nice ring to it. It stood together in the community center that bore his grandmother's name, surrounded by the chaos of children and hope and new beginnings. 2 broken people who'd found each other through manipulation and lies, and chosen to build something true from the wreckage. Outside, Manhattan glittered in the fading light, full of possibility and promise. And for the first time since Eleanor Cross had set her final plan in motion, both Damien and Victoria felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. Not because of contracts or arrangements or carefully orchestrated schemes, but because they'd chosen each other, again and again, through every disaster and triumph. And that choice, messy and imperfect and entirely their own, was worth more than any empire. The end.